Tonight, Ontario lays out its COVID-19 vaccine plans for the coming months.
We have asked each public health unit to make sure that they can rise to a minimum of 10,000 vaccinations per day.
For the first time, the province gives specific dates for when older Ontarians will get their shots, but is facing some criticism over its timeline. Plus,
we're not going to get to celebrate it the way that we want, but we're still going to work and ensure that we give the best.
The Toronto Pride Parade, one of many in-person events being cancelled again this year due to the pandemic. We'll tell you which others are affected and the ones that may still go ahead. And more details on the investigation into a suspicious death after a woman's body was discovered at a downtown apartment building. Good evening, I'm Kelda Yoon. We begin with breaking news from Richmond Hill, where a woman is dead and a man is in custody. Now you can see a large police presence at the scene tonight on Bond Crescent. That's near King Road and Yonge Street. York police say they received the call at around 7:45. When officers arrived at the residence, they found one woman dead inside. A male suspect was arrested and taken to hospital with injuries. Police say there is no threat to public safety, and they are appealing for anyone with information to come forward. Well, it's a question many have been asking. When will I be able to get vaccinated against COVID-19? Today, we got a better idea of that, at least when it comes to older Ontarians. At the same time, the Ford government is facing some criticism for a rollout that is lagging behind other provinces. Queen's Park reporter Mike Crawley has all the details.
All right, we ready?
Yeah. A senior living outside long-term care gets a COVID-19 shot today. It's a mobile pilot project at a senior's apartment building in Toronto. Unlike those living here, most of the 3 million people aged 60 and over in this province won't be vaccinated for weeks or even months. But now they have a clearer picture of when.
We will start with the 80-year-olds and over in the third week of March.
For the first time, the head of the province's vaccination task force reveals specific dates for giving shots to older Ontarians. Vaccinations for people aged 75 and older are to begin April 15th. For the 70-plus age group, it's May 1st. Those 65 and older start June 1st, then age 60 and up from the 1st of July. No dates were announced for younger age groups, for people with underlying medical conditions, or for essential workers outside the health sector.
It's outrageous. I mean, these are the kinds of things that the Ford government should have been dealing with months and months ago.
Other provinces are already poised to start their mass vaccinations of elderly who live independently. Quebec is getting a jump of more than 2 weeks on Ontario. Same goes for Alberta.
I'm going to respectfully disagree. We're far behind. We're leading the whole country. We're doing more than Alberta, BC. You combine all the vaccinations in the entire country. Ontario's doing more, so I don't know how we're falling behind on that.
Ontario also revealing today that its online portal for booking vaccinations will not be launched until the middle of next month, the very week that people over age 80 are to start getting vaccinated.
We are now furiously working to do the final stages of preparation, to test it thoroughly, and then to go live on the 15th of March.
At the beginning of March, and we're not ready. You know, it boggles my mind.
These buildings,
this doctor led today's mobile clinic and says when seniors do get the shot, they react with joy and relief.
They're really very, very warm, grateful, and happy. There's cheering, there's thanks. It's quite emotional, actually.
The federal government says provinces will receive enough doses that everyone can be vaccinated by September. Mike Crawley, CBC News, Toronto.
Toronto's medical officer of health says the city's COVID-19 numbers are going in the wrong direction, with a reproduction rate now at 1.1.
This means that right now in Toronto, each new case of COVID-19 is giving rise to more than one new case of COVID-19 thereafter. It means that our epidemic is in a position where it is again growing.
Dr. Eileen Davila says the reproduction rate needs to be below 1. She says there are currently 72 confirmed cases of variants of concern in Toronto, adding more than 700 cases are still being screened and are likely to also be variants of concern. Mayor John Tory announced today the cancellation of all major in-person events from now up to July 1st. That means no Canada Day celebrations, marathons, and the big one, no Pride Parade for the second year in a row. Alicia San has more.
This decision affects all in-person events from now to Canada Day. That includes the Toronto Marathon, the Sporting Life 10K, festivals like Luminato and Jazz Fest, North by Northeast, the Indigenous Arts Festival, and the Juno Awards.
Due to large crowd size, these present higher public health risks given limits to physical distancing perhaps not being achievable and given exposure to attendees from people outside of the area.
This also means that the 40th annual Pride Parade and Pride events will be held virtually.
We're not going to get to celebrate it the way that we want, but we're still going to work and ensure that we give the best.
It's the second year in a row it'll be virtual because of the pandemic. They'll build on the lessons learned from last year.
Some of the challenges that we faced in 2020 was that we literally were, Ubering equipments from home to home for individuals. This year, we are planning way in advance. So a lot of the planning to ensure that our artists can present, a really good piece for the audience.
There is hope yet for in-person events after July 1st, like Caravana or the CNE, which happen later in the summer, and the Royal Winter Fair in November.
We wouldn't be doing this without being able to ensure public safety. The advantage that we have with our event being in November is we'll have opportunity to watch how things are opening up. We'll have the opportunity to look at best practices from frankly around the world at other large-scale events and festivals and see what is working to be able to implement that for our event this coming November.
The fate of any event beyond July 1st will depend on COVID rates at that time.
I strongly encourage the business community and as many Toronto residents as possible to continue to support these virtual events and to support, if they can, financially support the causes that these events in turn support on an annual basis.
This news affects a lot of people, not just the spectators, but the artists and vendors who depend on these events going forward. So it's disappointing news for them tonight, but as Mayor John Tory said today,
New details tonight about what happened in a downtown apartment building yesterday morning. It's now confirmed a woman's remains have been found. The case now being investigated as a suspicious death, with 2 men believed to be involved, one fatally shot by police. Chris Glover brings us up to date.
For another full day, forensic investigators pieced together what happened inside this downtown Toronto apartment building. Police today confirming a body has been found, believed to be that of a missing woman. What happened here, though, early Tuesday morning is as bizarre as it is tragic. Sources tell CBC News someone discovered blood in the Toronto Community Housing building. Then, after checking security footage, the sources say 2 men were seen on video carrying bags out of the building, and a body part was seen falling from one of the bags. That's when police were called. In a twist, Toronto police officers were already on their way to the building. They were following up on a tip to find a missing woman. But when the details came through about the blood and the men carrying the bags, sources say instead, highly trained emergency task force officers were sent in. When they arrived, sources say they found Getty Ali Getty with an edged weapon inside an apartment on the 3rd floor. The Special Investigations Unit confirms 2 officers shot at 45-year-old Getty following an interaction, and he was pronounced dead in the hospital. The family of 33-year-old Amanda Colleen, who vanished this past Friday, told CBC Toronto her ex-boyfriend was named Getty Getty, and he lived at 291 George Street. They broke up about a year ago, but she often visited. Toronto homicide detectives are leading the missing woman turned suspicious death investigation, today confirming another Toronto man, 59-year-old Orson York, has been charged with indignity to a body and was in court this morning. Underscoring the danger of what happened, these are pictures from a man who lives across the street. He says bullets flew through his balcony's glass door early Tuesday morning, missing the bed he and his wife were in and landing in their closet.
The bullet passed me in my bed. You know, the bullet passed me in my bed. So I don't know, man. I don't know, I don't know how safe can you be if you're safe in your own bed.
You are lucky to be alive today.
Very lucky.
The Special Investigations Unit confirms those bullets were retrieved there today as part of its investigation. Chris Glover, CBC News, Toronto.
And Toronto police confirming tonight that an investigation is taking place on Commissioner Street, where a transfer station for waste collection is located. Police said the scene is part of an investigation for human remains, but would not confirm if it is connected to the case at 291 George Street. A woman pushing 2 children in a stroller on St. Clair Avenue was struck by an out-of-control vehicle that mounted the sidewalk this morning. We spoke with a woman who helped give first aid in the aftermath.
Out to do first aid. My boss, Dr. Gary Klein, was a hero. He ran out and sat with her and held the contusion. And I want to say she also was a hero because she pushed those twin babies away from the scene.
It happened just before the lunch hour on St. Clair West near Dufferin. According to witnesses, the woman was pinned against a glass window by the vehicle, which may have been reversing into a parking spot. The victim was taken to hospital with serious injuries. The children, both believed to be under 5, were not seriously hurt. An advocacy group has unveiled its plans for how to best transform the site of the Foundry buildings in downtown Toronto. This as it continues its fight to save the historic buildings from demolition. Jessica Ng has this story.
There's uncertainty around what will happen to the historic Foundry site on Eastern Avenue. Today, friends of the Foundry presented what they think the area could look like in the future.
The idea that you could preserve these buildings and at the same time create a modern, stunning complex with public spaces.
The local advocacy group collaborated with KPMB architects on their plan, which hopes to preserve the original buildings for the Foundry and the machine shop. The plan includes the construction of 3 buildings with a total of 870 residential units. They say at least 30% would be designated for affordable housing. The area would incorporate mixed-use spaces.
Some people have talked about the possibility of doing concerts. Some people have talked about the possibility of having an innovation incubator where people can start building literally the future, kind of like this built the future in its heyday.
The Dominion Wheel and Foundry's manufacturing complex was a major hub for construction of railway equipment in the 20th century. Very little remains from the Corktown site, which was designated as heritage properties in 2004. But many questions still swirl the province's negotiations with an unnamed developer to potentially acquire the site last year. Demolition crews damaged one of the buildings last month, and further demolition was halted by a court injunction, which has been delayed. Today, a representative for the Office of the Minister of Municipal Affairs and Housing says the provincial government is holding consultations with the West Don Lands Committee, the St. Lawrence Neighbourhood Association, and the Corktown Residents and Business Association.
The government is only consulting after they have already started demolition and after they have entered into an agreement for purchase of sale going back to September. So the community has really been left behind.
Public consultation is open until March 4th on the Government of Ontario's website, while residents continue to fight for this historic landmark. Jessica Ng, CBC News, Toronto.
It breaks your heart that the families aren't allowed to come in and touch them and hold them and tell them that they love them.
She's an ICU nurse who goes above and beyond to keep families connected while their loved one is in the hospital. Coming up, I'll introduce you to Helen Watling and tell you why some are calling her a guardian angel. And
after an incredibly mild day, big changes overnight tonight. Temperatures going back below freezing. I'm meteorologist Colette Kennedy. Likely see some refreezing as well for tomorrow, but I'll give you all the details coming up after the break.
When Elena Vitovskaya's dad, Sergei, contracted COVID-19 last year and had to be taken to the ICU, she didn't know if she would ever see him again. Thanks to all the doctors and nurses, he survived. And it was one nurse in particular, Elena says, who really helped the family through the stressful time. Helen Watling, who works in the ICU unit at Mackenzie Richmond Hill Hospital. I spoke with Elena about the impact Helen had and to Helen about what being a nurse means to her.
What I always say to people, that your people become my people. When they come into the ICU, your father becomes my father, your brother becomes my brother, your sister becomes my sister.
As an ICU nurse, Helen Watling has been working around the clock caring for the sickest COVID-19 patients since the pandemic began.
It breaks your heart that the families aren't allowed to come in and touch them and hold them and tell them that they love them.
One of the first patients to come under her care was Sergei Karen. Even though the 65-year-old had no underlying conditions, his health had quickly deteriorated and he had to be intubated. He stayed in the ICU for over a month.
He was in a condition that he doesn't remember anything. For us on the other end of it, it was incredibly uncertain time, stressful time. We couldn't go see him. We couldn't really get, doctors were so stressed out.
Sergei's daughter Elena says Helen became their saving grace, giving her family detailed updates throughout the night and setting up FaceTime calls to keep them connected.
At that point, I think you're really worried about how comfortable they are. And I think that she did such an amazing job communicating to us, showing his room, showing where he was, that she's been talking to him, that she held his hand, that she consoled him, because I feel like we all human and we need human touch.
We say hearing doesn't go away as a result of being on life support. So, if you want me to put that phone to your loved one's ear, I'm more than willing to put that phone to that ear. That gives you reassurance, and that gives that patient reassurance, and they know that they're loved.
She was really welcomed into our most intimate setting, in my bedroom with my children in bed. We were FaceTiming with Helen and my dad. So I felt like at that point she was a part of our family.
Helen says she was inspired to become a nurse very young after seeing how attentive they were when her mom was sick in the hospital.
When I was a little girl, 4 years old, those nurses took the effort to talk to me. Those nurses made a difference in my life. Those nurses made a difference in my sister's life. And at the end of the day, we can say that, I'm doing this job because it was an honor to watch those nurses do their job.
What has been the toughest part of this pandemic so far for you as an ICU nurse?
I think the toughest part is seeing people dying. That's the toughest part. They don't have their family members, and it's sad to call that family member and tell them that their loved one is dying. And I think that's the hardest part, because they can't come in and say goodbye.
What keeps you going every day?
You have everybody working so hard, the doctors, every nurse is out there, and they're supportive. If you're running into trouble, there's another nurse beside you that's willing to come and help. At the end of the day, this job is about caring. I always say to people, you know what, I love you, but I need you to get out of here.
Partly cloudy this evening, clearing as we get into the overnight. Currently 2 degrees downtown. Let's go now to our Colette Kennedy, who has more on the forecast. And Colette, temperatures dipping a bit as we got into the night, but pretty mild overall today, so no complaints there.
Yes, I think it gave us all that little taste of spring. The birds were singing so loudly. In fact, I do some of my earlier radio hits during the day from home, and they were so loud I was worried they were going to be picked up over the microphone. But hey, probably no one would have cared about that. It was that kind of day. Yes, a little bit wet with all the melting, and I just want everyone, it's always a reminder that we're freezing tonight, so we're going to have some slick areas, especially anywhere that's untreated tomorrow morning with the cooler air that is moving in, some of these gusty winds we've had. So it's kind of back to reality. We'll have quite a bit of sunshine with just increasing cloudiness late in the day. There may be a pocket of cloud early, but mostly that in between will be sunny. The transition on Friday, sunny, but the temperature beginning to come up a little above seasonal. And then I call it a blowout on the weekend because our highs are going to be around 6-7 degrees both days. So very mild, but there is at least one system to deal with on the weekend too. So I'll show you that here. But let's just recap the daytime highs up to 7.8 for Toronto. We'll round that up to 8 degrees. Windsor double digits. St. Catharines double digits as well. So some of these strong winds stay strong here through just past midnight, and then they'll begin to back off as we go towards the morning, and they'll be coming down towards 20 to 30, maybe still gusting towards 40, and then into the afternoon, dropping back from there. But west to northwesterly, it's ushering in that colder air, very different from those highs for today. This is what I was talking about. Could be just a little bit of cloud early because this is at 7 a.m. and then that moves away. We get into more sunshine, and then we'll see it coming back into the afternoon hours, starting from west to east and also around the Niagara region, that building in. Possibly a few light flurries as we go into Thursday night into Friday, but this is in the overnight hours, not during the daytime. Friday is a day with high pressure and sunshine, and then it's going to move on. And yeah, overnight Friday moving into southwestern Ontario. By Saturday morning, we'll be looking at what will mostly be a rain event through the GTA, certainly, because all around the Golden Horseshoe, because the temperatures will be so mild. Your lows tonight are not mild. There's a reality check. -7 Windsor, up to 1 degree. Sarnia, you'll likely get to 2 for tomorrow, so they're not bad readings by any stretch. Northwest winds overnight, like I said, those will kind of ease up, but there's going to be a wind chill. So even though -4, it'll feel more like -10 tomorrow morning. Be dressed for that one too. Tomorrow afternoon up to right around freezing for our highs with that sunshine and then increasing cloudiness. And there it is Saturday. Yeah, you got to see it written out, not just hear me say it. 7 degrees, and Sunday as well. Some sunny breaks in there, and 7. Kelda.
Good to hear. Thanks so much, Colette.
The weather is brought to you by Trane, the most reliable heating and cooling brand. We test, so it runs. It's hard to stop a train.
After the break, an Ontario woman may be making it into the Guinness Book of World Records for completing a 40,000-piece puzzle in about 150 hours.
Honestly, I felt so much disbelief that for a moment it was this, is it really done? I did it?
We'll have that story coming up. Finally tonight, an Ontario woman may be making it into the Guinness Book of World Records for completing a 40,000-piece puzzle in about 150 hours. Take a look.
A new world record.
Honestly, I felt so much disbelief that for a moment it was this, is it really done? I did it? So my name is Maxine Olive. I just recently completed the Disney Ravensburger puzzle of about 40,320 pieces. That's broken up into 10 different Disney scenes, all about 4,000 pieces in each puzzle that join together to complete a master puzzle. The highest record that we could find of it was a gentleman down in the States of about 423 hours, and I managed to complete this puzzle in 150.
Yeah, that's pretty impressive. Olive live streamed the process and will be submitting that footage to Guinness soon to apply for the world record title. And that's our show for you tonight. Thank you so much for watching. Dwight Drummond has your next local newscast tomorrow at 6. I will see you back here tomorrow night at 11. Have a great night, everyone.